One of the questions I'm asked by clients most often is, what are required minimum distributions, RMDs? What are they? How do they work? Why do I care? Stick around, that's the topic of the day. We're going to explain it all. Here we go. Required minimum distributions are government mandated distributions. Yes, the government makes you take money out of your retirement accounts when you get to a certain age. Why do they do that? One word, taxes, right? They let you put this money in, it was tax deferred, you got a tax break when it went into the account. If it went to a traditional IRA or a 401k or a 403b, it's grown over the years. Now it's time to pay the piper. So at a certain point, you have to start to draw money from that account so that they can start to tax that money. When does it start? That's always the first question, right? Used to be, for a long time, required minimum distributions started at age 70 and a half. Yes, half. I don't know why. No one celebrates their 70 and a half birthday, but that was when they had to start. Now that all changed. At the end of 2019, some legislation was passed called the Secure Act. It started in 2020, went into effect, that said required minimum distributions don't start at 70 and a half anymore. Now they start at age 72. So it pushed it on down the road a little bit. So you got to start them at age 72. There's some talk that it could be pushed even further through some future legislation, maybe all the way down to 75. But at this point, 72, you got to start to take your first required minimum distribution. So we know what they are. We know when they start. How much are they? It's not actually a percentage, it's what's called a factor. The IRS publishes a table, but you can equate it to a percentage. And so for our purposes, the first required minimum distribution you have to take at age 72 is 3.906%. Yeah, almost 4%, let's just call it that, right? And they go up each year. So every year, the percentage that you have to draw from your pool of retirement funds is a little bit greater. So that hopefully over time you're depleting that account. I say hopefully from the government standpoint because that means that they're getting more tax money from the account over time as you're taking a larger distribution. So we know when they start, we know how much they are. Normally the next question is like, well, how do I not do that, right? If I don't need the money, how do I just not take the required minimum distribution? The short answer is that's not a thing. You're gonna have to take the required minimum distribution. You're gonna have to pay the tax on this money that is pre-tax and to be taxed at some point. The best we can do is determine how much you pay and when you pay it. And we can do that through a couple of different strategies. So one is what's called a QLAC. That's a qualified longevity annuity contract. Real long word or name. That's why we call it just a QLAC. It's shorter that way. That's the act of taking a portion of your retirement money and kicking it on down the road, saying, I'm not going to calculate this portion in my RMD. I will draw from this portion at some point in the future. It's very detailed how much you can set aside when you have to start to take it. Just know that it exists. Ask your financial guy about it if you have some questions. If you don't have a person, give me a call, shoot me a line. I'll explain how it works to you. The second way, outside of a QLAC, is you could look at a Roth conversion. We talk about that all the time. A Roth conversion, you're still gonna pay tax. You're just gonna pay the tax now, moving money from the traditional side of things over into the Roth side of things, where there is no required minimum distribution. Why isn't there a required minimum distribution on a Roth? Well, it's easy. There's no taxes to come from a Roth, and so they don't care if you take the money out or if you let it sit in there, that's fine. The act of moving from one to the other and paying tax in between stops you from paying future tax on that money. So that can lower your need for future required minimum distributions by converting some money over, so that can be a benefit. There's some other strategies that you can employ to try to limit or adjust how your RMDs will work, but suffice it to say, you're gonna pay the tax at some point, at some time, to move money or get money out of a traditional to-be-taxed vehicle. So what if you don't do it? That's normally the last thing, right? What if you say like, I'm just not gonna do the required minimum distributions. It'll be fine, I'm sure. It will not be fine, right? 50% penalty for not taking a required minimum distribution. Additionally, you got to pay the taxes and still take the distribution. So it becomes a big mess. If you got a required minimum distribution due, it's required. Just take it, pay the tax, be done with it, and move on. If you're looking for some planning on it, work on some planning for it. But if you've got one that's due, you got to do it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like it, subscribe to the channel. We got lots of stuff here. You can look around. If you have something that you'd like to see me cover, shoot me a line. My contact information is all over the place. You're gonna see it here in a minute on the end screen. Shoot me a line. Let me know if there's a topic that you'd like me to cover. I appreciate you being here. As always, I hope you learned something, and I'll see you soon.